In the 1920s in New York, Ben is a superhero known as the Spider. He's always there to save the day with his enhanced senses and his spider web. Unfortunately, his girlfriend Ruby dies before he can propose to her, so Ben feels like he's failed her and decides to retire the Spider. He makes a hole in the wall and hides his costume there. 5 years later, Ben is working as a private investigator. At a bar, he finds his target Addison and follows him outside. Addison tries to warn him that this won't end well, but Ben refuses to give up and starts chasing him on the street. Unfortunately, a car hits Ben and knocks him out. The driver is Patrick, another investigator who threatens to shoot if Addison tries to escape. Addison runs anyway, so Patrick goes after him in his car. Ben soon wakes up uninjured and resumes the chase. Eventually he reaches the Standard Oil Company, where his spider sense starts tingling. He pulls out his gun before hiding to spy on Addison and Patrick's argument. Suddenly Addison creates fire on his hands and flames spread up his body. A terrified Patrick opens fire and Addison drops dead, so his flames reach some spilled oil. Ben immediately hides, but Patrick is knocked down by a small explosion. Afterward, Ben drags Patrick out of the flames' way and they share information, revealing they were both hired by a guy named Winston. The next morning at the office, Ben meets a new client named Carmody, who wants him to investigate his wife Kat. He overheard her on the phone arranging a meeting with another man, so Ben agrees to check if it's infidelity. At a diner, Ben meets with his friend Robbie. He's a freelance journalist who has been chasing a story of a monster coming after Silvermane, the kingpin who controls most of the city and the police. Since Robbie knows Ben's secret, he points out that the city is a mess since the Spider retired. However, Ben remembers watching Ruby drown inside a car and refuses to become the Spider again. Afterward, Ben buys a newspaper to read Robbie's latest article. He learns that Silvermane has a chokehold on the city and kills anyone who gets in the way. Someone set his mansion on fire but failed to kill him. Ben spends the whole day reading that same newspaper in front of the hotel and only moves when Kat arrives. After taking a picture, Ben enters the hotel too and chats with the guard while looking at the elevator, which tells him what floor Kat is on. Then he climbs the fire escape all the way to that floor and finds Kat talking to a mysterious man, so he takes more pictures. Suddenly the guy kisses Kat by force, so she slaps him. When the man is about to hit her back, Ben stops his hand with his web, which gives Kat the chance to run away. The guy rushes to the balcony, but Ben is already gone. The next day, Silvermane's right-hand Winston comes to the office to ask Ben about the Addison job. However, Ben knows Patrick was promised more money, so he won't tell him anything unless he gets paid the same. When Winston pulls out a gun, Ben's secretary Janet points a gun at him in return, so Winston leaves. Outside, Patrick is in his car and follows Winston to the burnt mansion. Minutes later, Patrick and Ben are spying on the meeting Silvermane is having with his men. Winston tells him that Ben asked for money and Silvermane agrees to pay whatever he asks for. It was Addison who burned the mansion and there are rumors of superpowers, so Silvermane is desperate to find him. When Ben returns to the office, Janet finishes developing last night's pictures and realizes that the man with Kat is Mayor Alfred. Refusing to get involved in politics, Ben later tells Carmody that Kat had been alone and gives him back his money. After Carmody leaves, Janet comes up with the idea of using the pictures to blackmail Kat so they can still make something off the case. This triggers Ben's spider sense. Later, Ben shows Kat's picture to Robbie, who recognizes her as a singer. She usually works at the Alcove, a club that Silvermane owns. The duo pays an employee at the local morgue and gets to look at Addison's body. There are bullet wounds but not a single burned mark. As Ben thinks about what happened, his spider sense reacts again. That night, Ben goes to the alcove and watches Kat perform, which leaves him in awe. He also notices Silvermane and Winston leaving their table, so he rushes to the phone booth and tries to call Patrick to no avail. In the basement, Silvermane's men have captured a now unconscious Patrick. Silvermane stabs his hand to wake him up and a crying Patrick explains he killed Addison. He confirms he had superpowers but couldn't find out who hired him to set the mansion on fire. Silvermane pays Patrick by slashing his throat and tells Winston to capture Ben too. At the club, Ben tries to talk to Kat and mentions the hotel, so Kat calls her bodyguard Flint. Ben manages to give her a picture before they kick him out. Outside, Ben gives some money to an orphan boy named Frankie, who confirms he's being followed. Ben goes to the top of a building under construction and Flint reveals himself to ask for the negatives. When Ben says no, Flint punches him a few times and threatens to throw him off the edge. Since Ben still doesn't surrender, Flint throws him at a wooden structure. Ben uses the planks to fight back and knocks Flint down. Suddenly Flint begins to transform and Ben is shocked to see his body slowly becoming sand. Flint attacks again with such strength that his fist can bend metal. Ben dodges a few punches but eventually Flint hits him, throwing him over the edge. Now Ben has no choice but to swing on his web to survive the fall. He returns to the building and uses his web on Flint to knock him down. At that moment Kat appears and asks Ben to leave them alone. Ben gives her the negatives for free and leaves. The next morning Kat comes to the office to hire Ben because Flint has disappeared. Their relationship is strictly professional, so she doesn't have any information about Flint besides his address. The transformation started around 6 months ago and was slow, but it got worse with time. Ben starts his investigation by breaking into Flint's apartment. He finds a box of postcards from France, which includes a photo of an army unit featuring Flint and Addison that triggers his spider sense. At that moment Winston and Silvermane's men also come looking for Flint, so Ben hides in the closet. When he realizes that he left his hat on the table, he uses his web to retrieve it. Winston hears a noise and tries to check the closet, but Ben has locked it with his web. Meanwhile Janet visits the police station and exchanges food for information about Flint. Later at the office, Janet tells Ben that Flint was working class and had several arrests. They look at the picture together and conclude that Kat must know about Addison. That night, Ben goes to the alcove and shows the picture to Kat. She admits she knew Flint had been in the war but denies knowing Addison. When Ben mentions Silvermane, Kat confirms he owns the club and therefore he's her boss, but her business with him isn't related to her business with Ben. Across the street, Flint watches both of them. When Ben returns to his apartment, his spider sense is triggered and he defends himself from two thugs. However, when he tries to shoot his web, his power isn't working. After Ben throws a toaster at a guy's face, they proceed to beat him up and take him away. In the car, Ben talks to the men to keep them distracted until he sees an opening. He punches a guy before he jumps out of the vehicle and hides under the bridge, so the thugs leave without seeing him. The next day Robbie goes to a humble neighborhood where he finds Addison's home, but it's empty. At that moment Lonnie comes in and demands an explanation, so Robbie explains he's looking for Addison's wife to inform her he's dead. Lonnie is devastated to hear his friend is gone and asks for details, so Robbie tells him about Silvermane while looking at various burnt things around the house. Lonnie says that Addison was sick and there were people out there abusing that sickness, but he doesn't know who hired him. Addison's wife may know, and she's now at a hotel spending the last of the money. At the office, Silvermane's thugs are ransacking the place and holding Janet at gunpoint. She swears she doesn't know anything until they leave. When Ben returns, Janet says she quits because she's already waited 5 years for the old Ben to come back but she can't risk her life on it. Drowning in guilt, Ben decides to go back to his old building and dresses up as a maintenance man. Then he goes to his old apartment and pretends he's there to fix the bathroom. He breaks a hole in the wall and retrieves his spider costume. Ben escapes through the window before the apartment owners check on him. At the hotel, Robbie bribes an employee to gain access to the back door. Soon he finds Addison's wife Vera, who threatens to scream for help. However, Robbie points out she won't want the most dangerous man in the city to know her husband tried to kill him. When he tells her that Addison is dead, she doesn't react because she had already guessed that since her husband hasn't come home. She explains that Addison discovered his power 6 months ago but refuses to say who hired him. Meanwhile, Lonnie meets with Flint to tell him that Addison is dead and that a reporter is snooping. They know the mutations will kill them soon, so they agree to stick together. At the docks, Silvermane and his men arrive in 3 cars to check on an illegal shipment. Suddenly the spider swings above them and lands on top of a vehicle, quickly pulling out all the thugs and knocking them out. The driver and a thug in another car open fire, so the spider dodges the bullets while using his web to hold on. Then he shoots some web through the bullet hole in the roof to get the wheel stuck before he swings away. Now out of control, the car crashes. When the thugs in the second car come out, the spider throws webs at their weapons and makes them shoot each other. He also uses a body as a shield until he can hide behind a car to take cover from the fire. Lastly, he shoots his web at a radio and throws it at the last thug to knock him out. 2 thugs come out of the third car and the spider shoots web at their faces to smash their heads together to knock them out. Afterward, the spider gets in the car to talk to Silvermane and tells him to leave Ben and his people alone. If he doesn't, the spider will come back and kill him. Later at the office, Ben gets a call from Robbie, who is at the docks. The police can be heard in the background having a gunfight. Robbie explains that the cops had prepared a trap for Silvermane, who never showed up. It seems Ben ruined their plan. The next day, Janet agrees to come back because Ben assures her that Silvermane won't bother them anymore. Robbie sees Flint's old group picture and recognizes Lonnie. This should be impossible since in that era units were segregated. After Robbie leaves to investigate this clue, Silvermane comes to the office saying he has a job. He thinks there's a rat among his men who sent Addison to his mansion and told the cops about the illegal shipment. He used to think Flint was dirty, but he didn't know about the dock meeting, so it can't be him. Silvermane drops some cash and promises to pay even more if Ben finds the rat. After Silvermane leaves, Ben looks at the dollar bills and notices that Silvermane marks all his money. He then checks Kat's bills and also finds a mark, but in a different spot. Next, Ben goes to the hospital and pretends to be a cop using a fake badge, so he gets to talk to the officers who got hurt during the docks gunfight. It takes him a lot of questioning, but eventually he learns the team had been sent by the mayor himself. Meanwhile, Robbie returns to the humbler neighborhood only to find the police clearing the area. The officers start beating up the locals and Robbie takes pictures of everything. When Lonnie comes out, a cop breaks his baton when he hits him in the arm. Suddenly Lonnie's skin transforms and becomes incredibly hard, so he hits the cops with amazing strength. Flint also comes out transforming and helps him fight the police. When an officer tries to attack Robbie, the mutants throw another officer to bring that man down. Robbie keeps taking pictures as Lonnie and Flint work together to knock all the policemen out. In the afternoon, Ben asks around the city until he finds Carmody's apartment and asks him who hired him. Carmody explains nobody hired him, He's a merchant who wanted the pictures to make some money but couldn't take them himself because of his wooden leg. He says he got a tip from the mayor's office. At that moment Ben's spider sense tingles and he notices a man watching the building outside, so he escapes through the back door. Afterward Ben goes to see Kat and tells her that Silvermane hired him to find a rat. Kat tells him that Flint has always been loyal and that Silvermane owns her, so she's scared because he isn't known for being a rational man. On his way out, Ben bumps into Winston, who is also looking for the rat. Winston gives Ben some money and tells him to come to him first with any information. When Ben looks at the bills, he notices they're marked too. At the office, Robbie tells Ben what happened in the humble neighborhood. Janet has done research and reveals that Flint, Addison, and Lonnie were prisoners of war together. The picture is from the day they were rescued. Ben talks to Robbie in private and concludes that Kat is the rat who was passing intel to Alfred. He's afraid that Winston will kill her, which reminds him of Ruby, so he asks Robbie for Vera's location. On the street, Ben notices someone is following him. Frankie helps him by trying to rob the guy, who immediately notices the kid's hand in his pocket and pushes him off. When he turns around, Ben is gone. At the hotel, Ben tells Vera that she's in danger, but she refuses to leave unless he pays her $1,000. Ben promises to come back with the money. Afterward Ben visits Silvermane to tell him he has a few clues he's following and he'll have the answer soon. This is just a distraction to put Webb on the balcony doors. Meanwhile, Robbie sells an article with the pictures of Fling and Lonnie to the newspaper. In the evening, Silvermane's men watch Ben's apartment and think he's still inside when it's actually Frankie in disguise. In the meantime, the spider easily breaks into Silvermane's place thanks to the web on the door. He then cracks Silvermane's safe open by using his enhanced hearing. After taking $1,000 without marks, he closes it again. Suddenly the wind hits the door and the noise wakes Silvermane up. He grabs his gun and calls his men to start a search, but the spider is hiding on the ceiling. Later Kat goes home and is worried about a noise, so she grabs her gun. However, it's just Flint, and they reunite with a passionate kiss. She tells him that things are messy with Silvermane and convinces him to leave together. The sweet moment is interrupted when Flint's body starts transforming, and he's so frustrated at his lack of control that he punches the wall. Flint says they can't be together as long as he's a monster and runs away alone. The next day the newspaper publishes Robbie's article with several changes. It calls Flint and Lonnie monsters and presents the cops as heroes who had to save the locals from the beasts. Robbie is furious that his name is under these lies. At the hotel, Ben gives Vera the money and they make a deal. When Ben leaves, Silvermane's thugs see him. They also notice Vera packing her things. Down the street, Ben is surrounded by bodyguards who inform him that the mayor needs him. At the government office, Alfred explains that he needs to talk to the spider because the city is too chaotic. He knows Ben is friends with the spider and tells him to pass the message. On his way home, Ben is stopped by Frankie, who tells him that Kat took a cab to the train station. Ben immediately rushes to the station to meet her and accuses her of being the rat. Before Kat can respond, they're found by Winston and his men. Winston thinks they've been working together and captures them both. In the countryside, Silvermane has prepared a grave. Winston brings Ben, Kat, and also Vera, who says it was Kat who paid Addison. Kat denies it and Ben asks for proof, so Vera gives them the money that Ben gave her, pretending it was part of Addison's pay. Silvermane looks at the bills and recognizes the mark he uses to pay Winston. It turns out Ben set Winston up by putting the right mark on the clean bills before paying Vera. She claims that Winston is the rat and didn't say anything because he threatened to kill her. Silvermane immediately shoots Winston and his body falls into the grave. He then shoots Winston's guard too. Later at the club, Silvermane pays Ben for finding the rat and explains that he'll talk to the police chief tomorrow. It's strange that the cops set him a trap when they're supposed to be in his pocket. Kat performs wonderfully as usual, but when she goes home she has a breakdown. The next day Silvermane waits for the chief but he doesn't show up, so he breaks his teacups in frustration. Meanwhile Ben and Kat meet in an empty theater so they can talk in private. Kat explains she used to perform here before Silvermane came to offer her the headline position at a new club. Back then she had been excited at such an opportunity that she couldn't predict the consequences. Nowadays she's nothing but Silvermane's puppet. Kat used to have a boyfriend who disappeared the day after he proposed to her, and she later learned that Silvermane killed him. Now she wants to be with Flint, so first she has to get rid of Silvermane. She met Addison through Flint and it was easy to convince him to kill Silvermane, but Addison botched the job. Then she sent the intel to the mayor for the docks raid, and that was ruined by the spider. That last part of the story is overheard by Flint. In Harlem, Robbie watches a man serving meals to vets and follows him when he leaves. In an alleyway, the man hands off a meal to Lonnie. Once the guy is gone, Robbie approaches Lonnie, who gets angry at him for the article. Robbie explains they changed his words and asks to talk. Meanwhile Flint goes to see Silvermane and explains he had to lie low because of the story. Silvermane is just happy to see him and tells him that Winston was the rat. Thinking about what he heard in the theater, Flint realizes Kat tricked Winston and starts transforming while telling Silvermane that he'll fight for him. At the office, Robbie has brought Lonnie, who is still not comfortable talking. Janet distracts him by playing cards while they wait for her boss. Eventually Lonnie relaxes and reveals that the Germans experimented on him when they captured him. The transformation can't be stopped, but the one who will know more is Dr. Faber. At a restaurant, Silvermane finds Alfred and they argue over their involvement in city matters. Alfred points out that the police chief is now on his side, revealing he's there to dine with him. A furious Silvermane makes Flint destroy the table, yet Alfred refuses to surrender. At his apartment, Ben tells Kat about Ruby. She was killed by one of his clients, who wanted revenge after a messy job. Ben had been at a bar drinking with friends while Ruby was captured, so he couldn't arrive in time to save her. He believes Ruby would be alive if she hadn't met him. Kat holds his hand and says they can be alone together. When they are about to kiss, they're interrupted by an urgent report on the radio. A monster is terrorizing the Diamond District. Kat guesses it's Flint and asks Ben to come with her to help him, but Ben refuses. A disappointed Kat calls him a coward before leaving. Then Ben calls Robbie and tells him to meet him in the Diamond District. After changing into his spider suit, he heads there and discovers that the so-called monster is Dirk, who has electrical powers and is robbing a store. The spider shoots webs at Dirk's hands, but this only allows Dirk to send electricity back and the spider is electrocuted. As Robbie arrives to take pictures, Dirk comes closer and electrocutes the spider by grabbing him directly, then he shoots his power into a puddle to tase him again. The spider pushes through the pain and tries to attack, but the electricity has messed with his senses and Dirk easily starts beating him up. The spider escapes by jumping on the wall, so Dirk sends his power up the bricks and the spider has to dodge it. When the spider lands on a light post, Dirk sends his next attack through the cables in the phone booth. Dirk is distracted by Kat's arrival and the electricity makes him collapse. Next, Dirk starts absorbing all the energy from a building's electrical box, so the spider uses his web to cut off the power in the area. A recharged Dirk attacks again, using any item he finds on the street as a weapon. The spider gets hit several times and at first it's pretty bad, but Dirk loses more and more power with every move and eventually he runs out of charge. This allows the spider to hit him with a sign to knock him out. The cops rush to take Dirk away and Alfred shakes the spider's hand for Robbie's camera. Then Alfred announces that he and the spider have teamed up to save the city, and the crowd cheers so they don't hear the spider say it's not true. When Ben returns to his apartment, Kat visits him and asks about his bruises. Ben tries to make up an excuse but Kat doesn't believe him and jumps out of the window. Now Ben has no choice but to use his web to save her. Kat calls him Mr. Spider and they kiss. Afterward they go to a diner and Kat asks for the full story. A flashback shows that Ben fought in the war too. His team reached a German base in France and killed several soldiers with ease. In an old building, Ben was horrified to find cells full of prisoners. When a German soldier was about to take him by surprise, Flint and another prisoner reached through the bars to kill the man first. Then Ben and his team opened all the cells and freed all the prisoners, including Addison and Flint. Then Ben and another soldier went deeper into the compound and found several prisoners restrained in beds connected to various creatures like snakes and lizards. The duo immediately started freeing all the men and Ben found one connected to a spider. When he pulled the bed sheets, he was horrified to see that this guy had been slowly transforming into a spider hybrid. Suddenly the man grabbed Ben's arm and bit him, so his partner had to shoot him in the head. In a mix of dizziness and confusion, Ben told his partner to burn the entire place down. Later when the picture was taken, Ben wasn't in it because he passed out nearby. In the present, Ben tells Kat that he learned to control his powers and suppress his spider impulses. Flint, Lonnie, and Addison probably got their powers there too and Ben wonders if they know someone who could fix them. After losing Ruby, he doesn't want his powers anymore. The next day, Robbie sells the Dirk story to the newspaper under 3 conditions. They aren't allowed to change it, they print a retraction for the last one, and he wants a permanent position in the company. His boss doesn't want his rivals to buy the story so he agrees to all of them. Later at the office, Janet and Robbie show Ben their research, which confirms that even Dirk was one of the prisoners. Apparently the Germans tried a super soldier program that failed. Ben thinks the origins aren't the main issue, they need to learn why the powers have only awakened now. Janet tells him they all were seeing the same doctor in Queens, who has been running a study for the past 10 years on prisoners of war. Dr. Faber is a renowned geneticist with many degrees and accolades, so it's suspicious that she's now working in Queens' little hospital. Lonnie said that she saw him and his friends 9 months ago and knew about the camp. In prison, Dirk is being tortured for information, but he refuses to talk and even laughs at the pain. Meanwhile, Flint has become Silvermane's new right hand. He finds Lonnie and convinces him to work for Silvermane too since they don't have other options in life. At the hospital, Robbie meets with Faber under the excuse of an interview. While she's distracted, Ben breaks into her office. In the cabinets, he finds a hidden section with extra files. Unfortunately, Robbie's questions offend Faber, who pretends she doesn't know anything about the powers and returns to her office. Ben hears her coming, so he hides the files and pretends to be a lost patient to quickly leave. Faber's assistant Ogden is also a former prisoner and recognizes Ben from the rescue mission. Faber checks her cabinet and confirms some files are missing, so she sends Ogden after him. Outside, Ben takes the files from the web where he hung them and leaves with Robbie. By the time Ogden comes out, they're already gone. In prison, Flint and Lonnie burst in and the cops open fire, but the bullets don't do any damage. The duo rushes inside by beating every officer that gets in the way, and Lonnie rips off the last door. The last 2 cops run in fear, and they beat up the guy who tortured Dirk. Then Silvermane comes in too and asks Dirk to work for him, so they make a deal. Once Dirk has been freed, he grabs some electrical cables and kisses his torturer to electrocute him to death. At the office, Robbie and Ben spend the night reading the files. The prisoners were injected with radiated plants and minerals plus the genetic materials of animals, and their genes were spliced. It seems Faber was trying to help them, but she accelerated the transformation instead, and now they're on the verge of death. Later, Ben is called to Silvermane's place and he notices that mutants are now working for him. Silvermane has a message for the Spider: he better place nice if he doesn't want trouble. When Ben is about to leave, Flint privately tells him he knows that Winston was a trap and he didn't say anything to the boss to protect Kat. But this is the only pass he gives Ben. Afterward, Ben appears at Kat's window and tells her that Flint doesn't have much left to live. He thinks they should stop chasing the ghosts of their pasts and leave New York together to start a new life somewhere else. Kat agrees and kisses him. The next morning, Lonnie visits Kat to talk about Flint. At the theater, Flint is removing bullets from his sandy body. Kat finds him and swears that everything she did was for them. She didn't tell him her plan because he's more loyal to Silvermane than her. Flint says he would have killed Silvermane for her if she had only asked. In his anger, Flint breaks a beam that almost kills Kat, but Lonnie saves her just in time. After Flint runs away, Kat asks if there's anything they can do to cure them. Lonnie explains that Faber wants the Spider because his mutation is more stable, so he could be the key to solving this. At the hospital, Faber and Ogden are moving out because they're afraid Robbie will send people after them. Kat finds them and makes them promise that she'll help Flint before telling them that the Spider is Ben. At home, Ben leaves some money for Janet and Ruby's picture in the drawer. Suddenly his spider sense tingles right before Ogden appears at his door. When Ben points a gun at him, Ogden pulls out the picture and reveals he was another one of the prisoners. His mutation has caused him to age incredibly fast. Faber is his last chance to survive, and if Robbie runs the story, he'll ruin her career. Ben changed his name after the war, otherwise Ogden would have found him much earlier. As he hands him the spider mask, Ben tells Ogden that he can't stop Robbie now and he has no more interest in this because he's leaving the city. Ogden says goodbye by shaking his hand, which is an excuse to inject him with a sedative. Afterward, Ben is taken to a private lab, where Faber and Ogden handcuff him to a bed and run several tests. When Ben wakes up, he threatens to kill them, but Faber doesn't believe him. This triggers a memory of Ben waking up in a tent after the moment he collapsed during the war. His body kept squirming, and a hole appeared in his wrist. Ben was shocked to pull web out of it. When he grabbed objects, they got stuck on his hand. His body wouldn't stop squirming and the military doctors did dozens of experiments on him, but they didn't find anything. In the present, Faber explains she saw all the Army's test results, but science has advanced a lot since then. She claims she isn't like the Army because they wanted to weaponize the hybrids and she wants to help them, revealing that Ogden is her son. When she asks if Ben isn't desperate to have a second chance with anyone, he thinks of Ruby. Faber mentions that Kat wants her second chance with Flint, making Ben realize he was betrayed before he falls unconscious again. The rest of the day Faber keeps running tests, but the results all look normal. Ben wants to use his web to escape, however his wrists have been bandaged. When Ogden brings him water, Ben tells him that Faber is insane and he isn't getting out alive, which Ogden refuses to believe. Then Faber gives him an injection and takes him to the surgery room. Suddenly Ben starts hallucinating. His mask becomes a big spider and the military doctors appear around him. They cut him open and dozens of little spiders come out of his body. The spider hybrid bites him again, so Ben runs until he finds Ruby, who transforms into the spider and mocks him. Ben becomes tiny like a spider and runs away from all his problems before he finally wakes up back in the room with a surgery scar on his chest. While Faber finally makes some progress, thanks to the new samples, Ben shakes his hand until he manages to move the bandage. Now he can shoot some web to get the handcuff keys. In the lab, Faber creates a serum and injects Ogden, whose body squirms until it transforms into the age he actually is. After they celebrate, Ogden wants to cure Ben too, but Faber refuses because she thinks he'll send them to prison. She wants to kill Ben and run away with her son. Ogden takes her gun and volunteers to do it. In the bedroom, Ben is dizzy and has trouble moving, so he uses his webs as support. When he reaches the corridor, he's found by Ogden, who points the gun at him and offers a deal. He'll let him go if he promises not to hurt his mother. Ben agrees and they take the elevator. Outside, Silvermane and his men arrive. Lonnie rips off the front door and the group takes the elevator. Thankfully, Ben's spider sense warns him, so he hides in the ceiling with Ogden. A blood drop falls on the guy's newspaper, but they don't notice. After the group leaves the elevator, the duo drops off and Ogden notices that Ben's wound has opened, but Ben swears he's fine. Then Ogden shows Ben the back door yet refuses to go with him. He knows he can't beat Silvermane's men, but he can't leave his mom alone. In the lab, Faber finishes bottling an antidote before she's found by the gang, who show her Robbie's latest article. Since Faber accelerated their mutations, they're hungry for revenge, but Silvermane is more interested in monsters, so Faber agrees to take them to her other lab. The other former prisoners she contacted have sadly been killed by their own mutations, and now Faber keeps their bodies in jars. Faber tries to convince the group that she can help them. The men don't believe her and accuse her of killing their comrades, so Dirk electrocutes her. Suddenly Ogden opens fire and shoots Dirk in the shoulder, but Flint punches him to stop him. Seeing him up close helps him remember Ogden from the cells. Then Dirk electrocutes both Ogden and Faber and Flint asks him to stop, so Lonnie pulls him back. The gun falls on some spilled oil that is hit by Dirk's electricity, which starts a fire. Silvermane announces there's nothing interesting here and leaves with the guys while Faber and Ogden collapse. Meanwhile Ben returns to the main lab to get his clothes and his samples. Outside, he sees two thugs and waits until they're distracted by the lab exploding to safely run away. The gang soon leaves in their cars before a bigger explosion brings the whole building down. Nearby Ben reveals he took the antidote too. A few days later, Dirk and Flint go to the mayor's campaign office. Dirk electrocutes two cops before the duo forces a secretary to take them to the money room. The guys grab a few bags and throw all the cash they can find. When Alfred finds the abandoned mess, he asks the police chief how this could happen. The chief reminds him that as normal men can't fight criminals with superpowers. In fact, he's lost a few officers. Without the Spider, the chief doesn't believe that Alfred will be re-elected. At the office, Kat asks Janet if she's heard from Ben because he didn't show up for their trip. Janet knows nothing and tries to call Robbie to investigate. Meanwhile Ben is at a bar drinking to forget that he's been betrayed. He keeps wondering if he should take the antidote but he's unsure. When a group of men comes to the bar for a drink, Ben hears them mock the Spider, causing him to snap. He yells at them, telling them that the Spider is a person like any other who gets sad and tired, but the group laughs at him. Ben goes outside, puts on his mask, and comes back inside to fight the loud men. Although he's very dizzy and drunk, Ben manages to fight all the guys at the same time, combining punches, web, and kicks. In just a few minutes, all the men are trapped in webs. By the time Robbie arrives, Ben is drinking again. When he announces that he'll take the antidote, Robbie steals the bottle and points out that if this is what Ben truly wanted, he would have already drunk it. The guys leave together and Ben tells his friend about Kat's betrayal. Robbie thinks Ben still needs to be a hero for the rest of New York and reminds him that men like Lonnie were soldiers like him who will die soon. Ben couldn't save Ruby because he hadn't known she was captured, but now he knows the issue and can make a choice. Afterward Robbie takes Ben to the office and Ben is so drunk that he tells Janet he's the Spider. However, Janet isn't surprised because he's done this every time he was drunk and never remembered it the next day. Meanwhile Flint visits Kat, who reminds him how much she loves him and asks him to be together. However, Flint knows he'll end up like the beasts from the lab, so he wants her to move on without him. When Ben starts feeling better, he separates the antidote into syringes and decides he'll cure the other hybrids before curing himself. At that moment they hear on the radio that Silvermane's gang is raiding a police warehouse in Harlem and the cops are doing nothing. Ronnie goes to talk to Lonnie, asking him why he's doing this. Lonnie explains that Silvermane has given him a roof and food, which he hadn't had in years. It's the only purpose he has before dying. When Ronnie insists, Lonnie yells at him. Suddenly the Spider knocks Lonnie down and explains they just want to help, but Lonnie doesn't care and quickly destroys the web the Spider throws at him. A fight ensues and the Spider moves fast to avoid getting hit, throwing a few objects in return. All this is a distraction. As soon as he gets an opening, the Spider tries to inject Lonnie with the antidote. Unfortunately his skin is so hard that the needle breaks and Lonnie throws the Spider on a car. When the Spider tries to pull out another needle, it falls from his hand. Lonnie gets ready to throw the killing blow, but Robbie picks up the needle and stabs Lonnie's eye to inject him. Lonnie yells in pain as he falls on his knees and his skin turns normal. The police notice this and are about to get their revenge, but the Spider quickly uses his web to knock them all down. Unfortunately his powers suddenly stop working and the cops surround the Spider to beat him up. Lonnie rushes to punch a few officers and picks up the Spider, then they get in a car with Robbie to escape. That night, Silvermane's thugs find the empty syringe and the police find the broken one. Soon the news of the cure reaches Silvermane and Alfred, and they both ask for Ben's help. Meanwhile Lonnie thanks Robbie for his help and explains he'll leave the country with his mother to start a new life. At the theater, Kat meets with Janet, who slaps her twice for her betrayal. Janet admits she made a mistake and offers to make up for it by injecting Flint and Dirk herself. When Janet returns to the office, her cop friend calls her to inform her that every cop in the city is looking for Ben. Janet leaves the office to search for her boss, unaware that Silvermane's thugs are following her. At Robbie's home, Janet tells Ben about Kat's offer. While they discuss whether they should trust her, Flint and Dirk enter the apartment and tell Ben that Silvermane wants to see him. Before Robbie can hand him his coat with the hidden antidotes, the thugs drag Ben away. At the club, Silvermane asks Ben to call the Spider. Ben calls Robbie and uses keywords to ask him to pretend to be the Spider before passing the phone to Silvermane. Then they make a deal: the Spider will bring the antidote to the club. However, Silvermane doesn't let Ben go until the delivery is done. While Ben and Silvermane chat and drink, Dirk realizes that Ben is the guy who saved his group from the German scientists. Ben denies it, but Flint backs it up. Silvermane starts to wonder if Ben is the Spider and threatens to shoot Kat, saying that only the Spider is fast enough to stop him. Under the table, Ben moves his hand but the web won't come out. To distract Silvermane, Kat tells him that Ben won't save her because she broke his heart. She is in love with Flint and only used Ben to achieve her goals. Tired of all the lies, Kat also admits she is the real rat. A furious Silvermane is about to shoot her when suddenly Robbie shows up dressed as the Spider. While Silvermane excitedly asks the Spider to join his gang, Cat steals the gun. Robbie wants to say no and fight the group, but Ben knows he can't win this and convinces him to hear Silvermane out as a cover. At that moment, two thugs come in with Janet, whom they found waiting outside with the syringes. Dirk immediately grabs them and injects Robbie, then he electrocutes him. Obviously Robbie passes out and Dirk sees it as proof that the antidote works. When Silvermane asks for the syringes, Dirk refuses to hand them over because he can tell Silvermane wants them to control him and Flint. Silvermane orders Flint to retrieve the antidote, however Dirk says that they don't need to obey Silvermane because they're more powerful. Flint is still angry about Silvermane's threat to Cat and agrees to betray him. Then Flint and Dirk unmask the Spider and find Robbie's face. At that moment Ben finally makes his web work and uses it to take the syringes. He also sticks Flint to the wall and throws Dirk on a table. Silvermane and the thugs open fire, so Cat fires back while Silvermane uses the distraction to escape. Ben shoots web at the thugs too before jumping in to knock them down. Unfortunately Dirk and Flint come after him and severely damage him with their powers before throwing him behind the bar. After confirming that Robbie is fine, the Spider takes back his costume and goes back to fighting Flint and Dirk. They exchange a few hits before the duo throws him through the window into the street. A car almost hits him but he swings away on his web. Then the Spider jumps on a moving vehicle, which Flint smashes with his incredible strength. The Spider has to jump again to rejoin the fight, and after he gets hit a few more times, he uses his web on a billboard. Since Dirk is holding him, he's dragged as well, and the crash drops them on the floor. Dirk's powers fail because of the sign's electrocution. Meanwhile Cat follows Silvermane to his treasure room. There are several mirrors around them so she appears to waste bullets shooting various reflections. Eventually all the mirrors fall and Silvermane is exposed, so Cat finally gets to kill him. On the street, Flint comes after the Spider, who uses his web to hit him with two cars that crush him into pure sand. However Flint puts his body back together pretty quickly and starts beating the Spider up again while Dirk recovers and keeps zapping him. With his mask half broken, the Spider squirms on the ground in front of a crowd who boos the two mutants. When Dirk is about to kill the Spider, Cat shows up and tries to shoot him, but she's out of ammo. Dirk brings her down with a zap, which greatly angers Flint. The mutants start fighting each other and Dirk's power can actually damage Flint, who loses both arms.